Hi, this is a introductory video for Lone Operative, my solo role-playing rules for Ghost Ops First Edition. So what you get is a 38-page PDF, but that includes the cover and contents and some art pages. So what you get is a little bit of an introduction about what is solo play, some advantages and disadvantages of solo play, and your style of solo play. Um, And then once I've gone through that, I introduce my oracle. Now, a lot of play is based on the idea of you've got a dice table, and at the top is yes and, at the bottom is no and in between are various shades of grey in on a yes no spectrum. And then you decide how likely you think something is to happen, and you adjust your dice roll based upon it. So things that are more likely to happen get shifted towards the yes end, and things that are less likely get shifted towards the no end. Now, I don't do that with this book and with this oracle. What I ask you to do is, when you structure your question, you I want you to imagine three scenarios: the most likely scenario, the worst case scenario, and a best case scenario. So those are your extremes, the yes and no and that kind of central, basic yes answer. But these are, you are thinking most likely, and then extreme, worst and best case scenarios. Then you roll your dice and you use the net answer here. So this will have a net of +1, because that is a two pluses and a minus. One of those cancels out, leaving us one plus. So that would then get you to shift your answer slightly um, away from the most likely and slightly towards the best case scenario. Um, so I use this one also for controlling NPCs. So imagine there are some uh, you know, terrorists, and they're you know outside a building when you arrive, and you want to know whether they you know immediately open fire and start fighting, or do they retreat, or do they just take cover. And you think that the most likely scenario would be that they would just take cover the minute they see some special forces or military. They'll take cover and try and fight from behind cover. The best scenario for you would be as if they just charged all guns blazing, because you've probably got superior equipment and body armor and all that sort of thing. Um, so it's very easy to take out people that make strategically bad decisions. And the worst case scenario is if they were to withdraw into the building and basically dig in, which means you have to go to them. So those are our best, worst, and most likely scenario. So we roll the dice, and what we get there is the 2 plus. Um, so that's going to be towards your best case scenario. So I would say that two of the terrorists kind of stand there and start blazing away at you while others take cover. So now you can imagine how these NPCs are reacting. It's quite good for you because you can probably take out those two and reduce their numbers, and then try and keep those pinned down. Um, so that's how you control NPC reactions. You can just say, are people pleased to see you? If you've rescued a hostage, are they pleased to see you? No, they aren't. And you because they're not actually pleased to see you, you could interpret that in several different ways. It could be that maybe they were starting to get through to the kidnappers and thought they could resolve it peacefully, or maybe you the there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome going on, and the person you're rescuing is actually was sympathizing with the terrorists. But you can add in some very, very sophisticated NPC reactions using this. Now, I also use it for scene building, which is a bit like world building. You ask a question about the scene, and you decide a yes, no, and probable answer, and then roll. So I've got examples here of asking whether there's any guards outside the you know, looking at this kind of a factory facility or compound. And so are they guards? And I rolled a plus, so yes, and I reckon they're patrolling in pairs. Um, can I see any signs of activity? No. Looks like the factory's shut down. Are there vehicles visible? Um, Now that's got a sum of nothing, two blanks and the plus and the minus uh, cancel out. Now I expected to see vehicles there, so that goes with the default, what I thought was most likely. So there are vehicles there, and that makes sense. If the place is being guarded, guards in pairs, or they must have got there somehow. So yeah, that's most likely. And so on. Goes, are there guards or watchtowers? And I got a completely null point. I was expecting to see them with searchlights, so that's what's there, and so on. You can make ask as many questions about the scene to build the scene as you like. I generally would ask more questions about scenes or locations that I think are going to be used a lot, and less about, if I'm just going to literally run through a room to get to the other side. I don't need to know that many details about it. So now we move on to the Muse. Now the Muse is there to inspire you to think of things. Now using something with just three, it's basically a D3. It doesn't give you many options, but four fudge dice give you 81 possible options as are all equally likely. So what I do is I suggest you decide how you're going to read the dice, say top to bottom and left to right. And then when you roll the dice, here we go. I would read that as instinctively to me that goes minus, minus, plus blank, because I generally read in this kind of top to bottom, left to right, but I favour left to right. So minus, minus, plus blank. Now I do two things. For me, the sum of those dice is -1 because these two, the plus and the minus cancel out, and we're left with a minus and a blank. So we're looking in the -1 section, and we're looking for minus, minus, plus blank. So -1 starts here, and we're looking for minus, minus, plus blank. Here you go. So I've got 3 columns on this table, and there's another version of this just below with 2 columns, and these are change actions, people, and the other 2 columns you'll see in a second are items and places. So my minus, minus, plus blank gives me a gaining, cooperation, and him. Now depending on what kind of question I was asking, I could roll once for each column, or I could, which is what I'd recommend. Otherwise, you're going to use them up quite quickly. So I could use that as gaining. Then I'll roll again, and so that is for me. That is blank, blank, plus, minus, and that has got a null result. So looking in this 0 section for a blank, blank, plus minus, there we go, is so we had gaining, decision, and the last roll is, for me, that is plus blank plus plus, which is in the +3 section, which is here, and it was plus plus where is it, plus plus blank plus, here you go, and the last one is priest, cleric, or rabbi. So what we had was gaining, decision, and then some kind of clerical. And so if my question had been something like, a telephone conversation, what were they talking about? It could be that the terrorist I'm listening in on is talking to, or sounds talking to some kind of spiritual leader or priest or cleric, and trying to gain some kind of decision from them. Um, getting them to maybe you know maybe release someone, or confess to something, whatever. The context would come from your game. So yeah, that's the you want the sum total of the dice and then the actual combination to find your words. Now this is the start of the other one. So you've got two columns here of items and places, because Ghost Ops is a very international game. Um, some of the places are literally like streets or labs or local, and others are places. And many of these places are the most violent places in the world according to Wikipedia, in deaths per thousand or something. So and then they've been randomized, so it's not in that order now. Now the empty column is space for you to as you think of things that are unique for your game, your setting, your missions, your play style, you can create those. And at the end of the book is a completely blank set of the 81 combinations for you to create as many uh, blank oracles as you like. So the next section here is about micro muses. Now, to really tailor this your games to you and your chosen style, genre, or situation, I suggest coming up with for each specific place just three options and stick it on a single plus minus blank table, and you can string them together to give yourself more depth. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with an exercise that comes up. You see it on TV quite often, um, where a lecturer saying criminology or a police detective or something like that, they fake a robbery or a mugging or an assault, and then they ask all of the students of criminology or trainee detectives to describe the attacker, and then everyone gives you different descriptions because we are supposedly notoriously bad at holding details. So I recreate that situation by just using four sort of micro muses here. One for the person's build, slight, medium, heavy. The hair coloring, fair, brown, black. Were they empty-handed, carrying a holdall, carrying a backpack, and were they armed? No, they weren't. Handgun, taser, and then you can just roll. So the first witness you talk to, so I would read that as blank. So medium build, minus fair hair, uh, holding a holdall, and they had a taser. Um, so that was you. This witness comes up with that combination. And what you could do is you could let's ask another witness, and that's blank. They also says medium build. So we've got two people saying they're medium build. So you could start to say, right, that's what we're looking for now. Um, this one is also saying fair hair. So our medium build fair hair is starting to make sense. Um, they were saying they had a backpack. The other one said it was holdall. So chances are they were carrying something, and they agree that they had a taser or threatened someone with a taser. So although we're actually rolling on completely random tables, we are starting to get a coherent picture of what our NPC looks like, and you can go from there. And you can then actually bring in the full blown muse as well, and I do that in here. I can't see the reference to it, but uh, there's you could then ask for if you wanted their accents, you could roll for a place. You uh, if you wanted to know kind of what they were talking about, what they asked, or something like that, you could uh, you use the general muse for that. Now you can also use it for uh, location specific, say like wandering monsters in other games, random encounters. So if you're hacking your way through the jungle, you could just have a little for this section of the jungle. You can have jaguar, emerald tree boa, ocelot. You roll one dice, and the if you're looking for tracks of what's in here, taking the top dice blank. There's the evidence of a tree boa, maybe a shed skin or something. or whatever remains you find from a tree bower. I don't know, you probably wouldn't find many of them, but maybe the tree bower is hanging from a tree over your path. It's you're using to create little details. Coming up with just three options is very, very quick, so you should be able to build as you know many of these little tables and build them into your game notes. So whenever you pass through this area, you're using these very customized little tables. Now there is a proper random mission generator for Ghost Ops. I do recommend you use it, but if you just want to use these rules, I build a mini uh, generator here, and it is built from 8 micro muses, and then I just rolled on each of them, and I came up with this a mission here. Now, do and goal, um, sorry, excuse me, may sound very similar, but missions often have a secondary objective, and that's how I used them in this case. So I rolled on each of these each micro muse and came up with these facts for my mission. The mission was to capture and to capture a rebel. The location is a factory, a coastal factory. The Tangos were pirates, and the commanders meant to be very pragmatic. The assessment of the pirates was that they were veterans and have a goal of neutralize them. So the way I interpreted this is um, I rolled for a place using the main oracle and came up with Natal, which is on the east coast of kind of South Africa and sort of east coast of the African continent, down by South Africa. And I've had these pirates were capturing ships, holding them to ransom, and I thought that the the leader had actually welded together several sort of pirate groups and was organizing them, and they were becoming a major threat to global shipping, and that's why we were sent in. But the question was, who was funding them? Their their equipment's very good. Their intelligence is good, so it was expected that there was a a player behind them. So the goal was to capture the rebel leader. The I decided that the factory was an old fish processing factory on the coast, and my secondary goal is after I captured the rebel, the leader, was to neutralize the pirates. So I managed to use all of my elements here. Now that comes up again later on in here in these rules in an example of play. Now, events outside your control are using things where you don't know when something's going to happen. If you're still trying to you know, fight on a burning gantry or something, or collapsing gantry, you don't know when it's going to collapse. So what I would do, you give it a number of dice. Say we start with 4 dice. And when you roll them, you discard anything that comes up with plus. So in this case, the first time, climbing the gantry, you know, it's kind of rickety or whatever. I've discarded 1 dice. Now you decide what is going to trigger the event, and it could be kind of each combat round. It could be per minute. Anything that any interval you think is right. If I was using this as combat rounds, in the second combat round, I roll the dice again, and my gantry is still standing. On the third combat round, we're still standing. On the fourth combat round, yeah. So my gantry is still standing, but on the next one, I'm going to remove 2 dice. And on what was that? Was that the fifth or the sixth? So on the next combat round, it's still standing. On the seventh combat round, it finally collapses. So although I would never have, I couldn't plan for it. The characters might get an idea of how unstable it's becoming as the dice were reduced. But you never actually know when to things going to give way, and it could be you could use that for working out when if you had guards patrolling and you don't know their timing, you could literally roll just to see when they come around the corner. Uh, and then the last big section here is an example of play, and you, I've put in little footnotes, and then when you find the footnotes, you can I was on the coast and I rolled and it came up with Natal. It said that I rolled and came up with two words of opposing combat. So in my mission, I was told that the commander should be captured alive. In terms of opposing combat, as in not killing them. Um, and so, yeah, the top section is the game, if you like, and the bottom section is all the solo rules in action and skill checks and things. And then that becomes the next section. Then I finish off with some solo tips, and then at the end there is a blank copy of the Muse, so you can print those off and create as many as you like. Every combination is there with the probability. Oh, the sum, the sum of the dice to make it easier to navigate. 81 options there. Okay, so thank you for watching. That is my Ghost Ops solo rules.